What's up, guys? Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. As you guys might or might not have been following, these are our kind of like TLDR, end of the month, couple of summing up a bunch of updates, refines, update, new mode, whatever. All that is going to be in this video. So things we'll cover in this video are the new units, the weapon refines, the new update, and touching on the new mode a little bit, because it's probably in the update notif. If you're not familiar with the change in the whole YouTube thing, well, honestly, it's just life's been pretty good, pretty busy, just a lot happening right now. So I am putting less time into YouTube, and I'm still streaming. So if you guys want to see me, do recommend me checking out the streams, or at least the VODs. That's obviously in the links below. Otherwise, I'll try to release occasional YouTube video for you guys that cannot follow the streams and get my opinions on this stuff as it comes out. Same old stuff on the Twitch stream, which is just gameplay. We do AR content there. We do, well, you can see my screen on the left there. We'll do the updates in a moment. I'll talk about whatever I can throughout this video. I do want to occasionally release another video here and there. So maybe I'll do like a tier list video, but it's all going to be discussed and talked about on the streams, recorded, and then put up onto YouTube. It's just that's the best use of my time that I can do. If you want to support the content, a thumbs up is a good way to do it. There's also other links in the description below. Thank you to all my Patreons that support content, keep me here for as long as I have been. But with that being said, let's begin with actually the new units, as that's a good place to start. So with that being said, these guys were revealed in the FEH Channel, but did get an update video, I believe a day or two ago, as of this video being released, so I'll just give you my thoughts here. As it is a bit more impactful than most, so let's see what we got. Skip on ahead, our first one is Cath.
What? You don't know who I am?
Which is another Blue Tome Cav. It's like IS's agenda is make sure that everything and anything is better than Reinhardt and never give him weapon refine. That kind of feels like what we have here. Anyways, first thing you'll notice is that there is a new set of Canto skills. These will show on some of the other units as well. And they are kind of previewed after the unit attacks, so I'm not really going to touch into them too much. But they are warp mechanics, which means they can be countered by Gatekeeper, Warp Bubble, and other anti-warp type effects. Keep in mind, though, that if the actual warp tile is farther than the unit, then the Warp Bubble effect might not actually do much. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I haven't seen the interaction on it, but I don't feel like stuff like Gatekeeper or necessarily like Legendary Mirror's effect might be a hard counter to these effects, but they are definitely at least a soft counter, if nothing else. So another unit with a push skill, a snag skill, which doesn't matter. Blue Feud is pretty good fodder though, and Cath herself at least having a unique Canto effect could be interesting. Especially since the Canto is a set Canto, it's not a rem, which means you'll at least get some distance as long as you're not hit by a Canto control or a warp denial effect. There's also some true damage on the weapon and a bunch of the stuff we'd expect, which is damage, and more damage. As for the theme of this banner, I believe we usually had the pirates in this slot. I'm okay with this. I like some change, so I'm personally a fan of the shake-up. What do you guys think of this? Comments below, Twitch chat, you can also tell me. What do you think of the whole like pirates or persona type banner?
The most masterful skill in thievery is to do the work without.
So next up is Layla with a red tone flyer. It's interesting. We have Canto Ally 2. So this one is, again, it's going to be set Canto, so that means as long as you have an ally within 2 spaces, it's going to be applicable. For range units, I think these set Cantos are very strong, and they should definitely be impactful for something like Summoner Duels at the very least. If you're not getting hit by Canto control, which by now you probably should be getting Canto control somewhere, either through Medius or Hall of Forms, and getting Canto control on some of those units that are coming out there. As for Layla, she does what we'd expect, which is sort of wind sweep type effect. She has damage and speed, and also does like a poison savage blow type thing on her weapon to sum it up. Now, I've seen a bit of discussion regarding Defense Res Smoke 3 and how it applies Pathfinder. I think it's on the right unit for this, but I think that it also is good on paper, but not necessarily that great in practice. And the reason for that is because the unit actually has to attack to apply Pathfinder. So it's gonna whatever unit is gonna be your initiator most of the time is gonna want something like this, and then they're probably gonna want to retreat or get into position so that Pathfinder helps out the rest of the team. Again, I feel like this is one of those skills that are very good on paper, but not necessarily that amazing in practice. It's probably decent on Layla because she could just Canto back using her own Canto effect and then set up her own Pathfinder that way. But in general, the fact that the Pathfinder isn't like a base there, it's not on the weapon or something, means that, yeah, you can pretty much have Pathfinder on everyone, but you still need to engage with the unit and then set it up. It's kind of the same issue that Smoke 4s have had, the Attack Smoke 4, the Speed Smoke 4. You don't just like automatically have your Speed DR, you gotta at least engage in the combat to get a lot of use out of that.
Show me your valuables.
It's a new toy, a new interesting way to play, but it's not necessarily going to break how things work. So again, see, as you can see, the Pathfinder is now applied, and she can go anywhere within 2 spaces. So I guess in this case, you maybe just stay in position or go to the right of Hector, and then Hector would have the Pathfinder to reach the armor, which is nice, and that's the use case here that you can see in this example. But generally speaking, you need an initiator to hold this skill. It's not just going to be thrown out to everyone, and you may not always get the Pathfinder effect.
I'm not after anything in particular, but I would like to nab something from Micaiah.
So with alt, Green Dagger Flyer comes with, well, this is the 4-star special, 4-star focus, not 4-star special. Comes with a Harsh Command Plus, Swift Sparrow, and Attack Defense Rain, which are all nice fodder to have, but I think the most notable thing here is going to be the Florid Knife, which is an inheritable Canto 1 dagger. Now that is really good. I like preset Canto on range units probably more than Rem most of the time. So this is interesting for sure. And the fact that it's inheritable means you can pretty much give Canto to a lot of units. The most important units that are going to want to use this are old units that just have outdated preference weapons. So Gaius users would get happy by this, I guess. Or maybe even Felicia or something. Just units who have outdated old preference weapons are going to really appreciate inheritable with this. Or just dancers who are never going to get preference weapons apparently are going to really appreciate something like this, because dancers with Canto are nice. So this is a great inheritable if you are an avid user of daggers. All right.
Focus on the task. Look at those two.
So another aggro alt, but
Silently.
Nina is the lead unit, which is interesting to say the least. She comes with Canto Recall, and we'll see right after what exactly that means. It's not much. Well, for now, I'm not really going to delve into that. So with her weapon, she's pretty much going to do what we'd expect, which is doing a bunch of damage, but has adaptive damage. So her damage is going to cut harder into units who are more lopsided in their defense or res stacking. She's going to do a lot of it, of course. Lethality at 4 charge is really awkward. This might just be as a way for her to be inherited. Attack speed catch 4 is good. It's nice. Sea Feud is pretty good as well, since it should shut down stuff like Elamine and Flame, notably. Most important as well is the Preference B skill, which is now a 300 SPB skill. That will open up the door for so many different units to either catch up, even the playing field and such, and just change the dynamics of Arena. So, for example, any legendary that didn't have a Preference B skill can now start using these Preference B skills. And there will be more, so don't feel obliged to chase after this. I'd say most people shouldn't chase after this and wait till better and more of them become available. Honestly, this is the weakest preference sorry, this is the weakest 300 SPP skill you can get, so it's better to just wait if you care about arena before you get those score increases. But yeah, a lot of characters are just going to appreciate that sort of score increase, and that's evident here. So as you can see there, the recall is the starting position in which Nina attacked from. This is amazing because it can act as kind of like a Canto 3, especially on Nina, since she is a Cav at the end of the day. So that's crazy good. There's no other Cav with a set Canto 3. That makes her relevant already. The fact that she's a dagger Cav is also pretty good, and adaptive damage. I definitely see some place for Nina. Dual skill is also synergistic with her. We're not going to see much use of this in AR, of course, because we have dual hindrance all over the place. But I could imagine for something like Summoner Duels, this is hilarious. And you could likely even combine it with, I imagine, Pathfinder, and just run around the whole field and jump back to her starting position. Like in Summoner Duels, and you combine it with Dual Dagger, just literally traverse the whole field and then cancel recall to the starting position. You may not even want that because then you'd be out of zone, but it's still funny how something like that exists. And even without using Dual Dagger, or well, you can't really use two Pathfinder skills, but I mean like Pathfinder in general can just really amplify the amount of distance you could traverse and then recall back. So just combine like the path. If we have the Pathfinder Captain skill, you use like Note, use like Dagger or whatnot, you're just gonna end up having so much distance, and then just recall so far back, way out of distance. Which is again another case for why Canto control is so important.
Don't get caught.
With style.
And stealth.
Okay, and that pretty much covers the new units. Banner itself lasts a month, so no rush. There's good units here. Everything except South, of course. If there's some of your favorites, I'm sure most people won't be disappointed with at least a Spark if you have Fed Pass. Yeah, I guess if you're into Summoner Duels, Nina is going to be pretty impactful as well. Okay. Let's move on and start talking about the update and weapon refines. I'm going to start actually with the weapon refines. And let's begin from Rutger. Yeah, let's begin with Rutger. So I was actually anticipating this refine myself for quite a while. If you actually look at my barracks here on the left, you'll see that I have a like a built Rutger, kind of. It's not like invested hard or anything, but I was kind of looking forward to at least investing harder into him based on his refine. I was waiting like a long time for this one. So this is a big disappointment for me, because if you look at Rutger from like Fire Emblem 6, he's supposed to be a crit machine. It's literally known for that. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing that he has no sort of special acceleration or like a spiral effect or something like that. Just makes him critting more often. The only thing he does technically have the I guess this like slaying weapon, and he has the blade effect to give him more specials more often. But I think more in character here, or at least what I would have preferred, would have been a spiral type effect, or at least post combat spiral or something, or even just like a Navarre pre-charged super time spells or something. He got nothing like that, so I feel he just gets lumped into a bunch of sword infantry, speed DR builds, and he just got a bunch of effects in his weapon like a lot of other sword infantry end up having. So this is just very dull, and I'm not really doing anything with this. But I guess if you wanted to use Rutger now, what you end up doing is throw like no follow-up in the B skill. He has DR in his weapon, and then go from there. I guess you could still use Vital Astra, which is okay, but it's not going to be as consistent as somebody like, let's just say, Marita, who uses it and can consistently keep it up. So yeah, even like a Marita, and I'm talking Senna Marita, of course, it just feels kind of like more consistent than him. So yeah, kind of disappointing for me. If you feel like it's like I'm missing something on how good Rutger is, then feel free to say in the comments as well. Yeah, it's what I said. He said he has a blade effect. Like, again, that's not really interesting to me. So next up is Alm. Now Alm is an interesting case for sure, and we will talk about his remix as well. So Alm was really good, even before Refine, I'd say. He's one of those like remixes that don't necessarily like need it as much because he ended up doing damage almost consistently all the time. DR definitely hurt him quite a bit. Like Hardy Fighter effects and DR in general, if you didn't have, let's say, Deadeye to pierce through it, kind of hurt. With Lunar Flash and Lunar Arc being upgraded though, it makes him just get through a lot of these problems he had before. So I believe his Lunar Flash upgraded now pierces DR, which is really good, and then it also cuts through defense, which isn't the same as Deadeye. It's more like a Luna, it's more like a lethality effect. His weapon already also does this as well, and that's more like a true damage type thing. It's not actually cutting through it, it just does the damage consistently. So this is really awesome at all, and he's almost always going to do some very consistent type damage. So the Refine does make him into a better place. It also gives him, I believe, a tempo in that weapon. So a tempo is going to be pretty solid as well to make sure he fires off his special, which just going to add the consistency. If you're going to be using Alm, he's going to feel right at home in something like a Bridal Catcher Ball on air defense and just doing massive amounts of damage. There's a lot of units that compete for that role, but if you're one of those people who have, let's say, you don't have too many options, and you're just looking for somebody who fits into that role, then Alm is a pretty solid option for it. His kit even is pretty decent for it. I believe he comes with like no follow-up, so you pretty much just want to swap out his A skill for like a Unity or Impact, and he's good to go. Even at base kit, like not even changing much to it, he's going to be in a pretty solid spot. Okay, so Hilda is next. Hilda is known for being either supportive or carrying, I guess, if you look at her role in Three Houses, Three Hopes, and whatnot. Her Refine does add some element to that, which is giving for all stats to your allies, but also providing like a deny follow-up effect. So this is kind of like a one-sided worry fighter, I guess, is the best way to describe it. That is fairly unique because I don't think there's anyone else I can think of off the top of my head that does something similar. And having just $4 stats feels just very male Corrin-like. So if you're going to be doing just any type of tanking, Hilda could potentially be a solid option there. There are so many units that compete for a support slot though, which makes Hilda kind of competitive to really be wanting that slot. Like, it's hard to justify the Hilda slot when there's so many units that likely want that position. But the thing is, Hilda herself could potentially act as a carry unit that a lot of support units aren't able to do. So I feel like if you're going to use Hilda, maybe combined with a far save could be a way to do it, where she's able to maybe support the far save, but also do a bit of carrying on her own, because the Refine and her weapon does pretty well for that at least. So the combination of friends will make Hilda stand out more. Next up is Keaton. Now Keaton has notably a very high base attack. I believe it's base 41 and a super boon up to 45. You can kind of see that in the screenshot here. That still makes him pretty good even by today's standards, considering he has a double phase Brave. And there's not too many units that have a dual phase Brave, so he's still actually quite good and probably in a pretty solid spot overall. Upgrading his base effect on his beast weapon means he now has tempo, which means he's going to consistently throw out specials. Unfortunately, he can't run Ruptured Sky, and he doesn't have Slaying, which is going to put him in an awkward usage of either Moonbow or Glimmer, I would say. And it looks like he has a sort of blade type effect as well. So that's okay. He's like I said, he's probably just going to be throwing off Glimmers or Moonbows as opposed to more favorably throwing off, let's say, a Bonfire or a Glimmer on every single combat. But I think as a Vantage unit, he could be used pretty well, especially in light season if you don't have like Altina, for example. And this Refine will really help him pull that off. Next up is Summer Legyarn. I'd throw Summer Legyarn in kind of the same position I would throw a lot of the other Bridal Catria defense type units, and I think I covered Summer Leguiarn herself, probably a couple of months ago when she was a Hall of Forms unit. So now that the Refine is here, there's probably quite a few of you that did end up picking up Summer Leguiarn as a potential Forma. This Refine is just obviously going to improve her attack and speed, and she has, I believe, an all follow-up effect, and just kind of the same effect that the OG Leguiarn has, which is like if the enemy is buffed, then she gets stronger. But the built-in Desperation is pretty awesome, which means that if she is on a Bridal Catcher team, she could potentially just quad right out before the enemy even retaliates. So a decent option, again, for you guys who just want to like be dynamic with the kind of Bridal Catcher teams, or even not like Bridal Catcher teams, just using different units on defense as nukers. That's kind of where these units will stand out. I feel potentially you could do something maybe on air offense as a hidden run, but there are way better units for this sort of role. Next up is Canto. This is a pretty big one, but I'll try to summarize it best I can. So the base effect on the Armored Beast weapon gets upgraded to also have a 70% DR on follow-up attacks. Notably not Brave weapons, which means that it's only the second hit, or on a Brave weapon, it's going to be a third and fourth hits. It's shown in the weapon itself, but it is very important to distinguish that. The 4 to all stats is there as well, it's still kept. So that's pretty much the change of the base effect, him being like a discounter weapon. We weren't really going to expect too much, but the DR does at least have AoE protection, which is pretty solid. On top of that, the Refine itself is pretty good. The Refine is a attack defense -5 on the foe as long as he has 25% HP, which is like super easy to accomplish. And then the second part is a transformation clause, which is again super easy to accomplish. So with that one, it's buffing up his attack defense and res by 25% of the foe's attack. This is decent because most foes that probably going to attack into Canto will have something like 60, 70, potentially 80 attack. So he's going to get pretty close to maxing that effect up to 10, and at least going to get, I think, at least 5 to 10 out of it, which is decent because that potentially means he's going to have anywhere from Witten's weapon, of course, his base effect weapon having 4, but it's going to come up to potentially up to 14 attack, defense, and res, with speed being 4. It is a bit sad that he doesn't have speed, because I think that would have made him stand out even further compared to Fallen Edelgard, because that's his only other competition in this role. But I think his base effect, having that DR, is really solid because as a Hardy Fighter armor now, he's going to be really solid to just use like Sacred Cowl, use Hardy Fighter with Far Save. He has his open A slot, which is free to use like this in Defense 4, or Unity, or just whatever, Stance 3. And then he can have tons of stats, tons of attack. He has a high base attack. If you throw like Deflect Magic on him, now he doesn't really care about the Brave weapons, and he has like Sacred Cowl. So he's just going to be very resilient, hard to kill, and he hits hard because he just has a super high attack stat. So, and a massive bulk as well from the defense and res that usually just comes out of his base weapon and his Refine. Like this is probably what Canto wanted. The only thing lacking here, again, as I said, is the lack of speed, and I feel like speed actually could have made him very interesting. Without it, it's less interesting, but I think as a Hardy Fighter armor, Canto stands out quite a bit now. And but watch out, because I do think like Canto in a few months is likely to happen as a Hall of Forms option. So don't go hard investing into him now if you think you might want to pick up, let's say, Hardy Fighter or Far Save or something like that from an upcoming Hall of Forms, because there's a pretty solid chance he shows up in the Radiant Dawn Hall of Forms. I would pick him up myself. Okay, and I think Naga is our last one here. Yeah, Naga is our last one. So Naga is one I've been waiting for a while myself, and I'll be completing her this month as well. Going from +9 to +10, I'll end up getting my Refine remix right before Astra season starts. I'm pretty happy with this Refine, personally. I wasn't even expecting Naga to have any supportive capabilities, but at least she does. So she ends up giving 3 to all stats to anyone who is effective against dragons or dragon allies. That's nice. Like it's decent for someone I have to use anyways. I'm pretty happy about that. But now she's actually quite good as a combat unit for a couple of reasons. So she can give herself tons of stats. Her old OG Divine Breath effect is still pretty much there, like 9 to all stats. And on her Refine, it also has an additional 4, which is easy to meet because of the 3 spaces on ally. But then she also has DR on the first attack and additional like hit back based on the difference on attack versus res. Now, with all the stats she's getting, she's probably getting around 13 to all stats, and her attack is going to be pretty high up there. As you can see by my Naga on the left, you're looking at probably a Naga somewhere in like 60 70 attack, depending on how invested or what skill choices you make. Her Divine Fang Plus, also notably at the beginning of turn, gives attack speed 6 to Naga, and that's going to be pretty solid because with this combination, she could potentially act as a legitimate melee tank now. If you're running her with a bunch of other dragons or dragon effective potential units. I mean, she does have Divine Fang to kind of make everyone synergize with her, but I do think this all these stats will just make her better and usable now as potentially a melee tank if you have no other option. Like, she's going to beat Zeros with this. No problem. And if you use Dive Bomb, she probably can be a decent cleanup unit now too. The lack of trace kind of hurts, and maybe that is the better B skill to use, especially if you're going to use her maybe as a tank. But I think Dive Bomb is perfectly fine here, and she'll do a decent job of cleaning up considering how much offensive pressure she has. So I'm pretty happy about this. As a smite bot, she's going to do pretty well as well. For Divine Fang Plus, we'll talk about it in a moment because we're going to go look into the update notif as well. But her Divine Fang Plus gives attack speed 6, so if you end up giving her like defense res link, she can end up just solo buffing quite a few units, or even tactic skills or whatnot. So overall, pretty happy with how this turned out. Most mythics haven't let me down in the remixes. I believe Duma and Air are still also pretty solid with how they turned out. And I'm looking forward to actually playing with Naga myself during next week and finally maxing her out. Maybe even maxing out her flowers and merges as well. Okay, with that being said, the last thing we want to talk about here is, of course, the update notif. So with the update notif, there are quite a few things, and I would say a lot to be excited about. I think before we even jump into the update notif, we can go look at the Tempest Trials. And the Tempest Trials is pretty awesome because we're going to have a free melee sword with Canto Rem. That is also really good because I feel like if you're going to run, let's say, Olivia or Sylvia, or you have been running those with Wings of Mercy and Gale Force strats, Canto Rem is a great addition for a dancer to make them get into a better position to set up the rest of your team. So this is a great inheritable weapon. I could see myself easily inheriting this to so many units that just have outdated stuff. So as a freebie, Canto Rem is awesome. There was also that dagger that we talked about earlier with Soth having it, and Canto 1, which is also really good, but this is a great thing to have. On top of that, it looks like it has been confirmed that we are going to be getting a attack res ideal seal and a distant counter dragon seal. That is amazing. So a distant counter, this is distant counter D, distant counter dragon, as has been confirmed, and it also confirmed to be 300 SP seal. Again, another upgrade for arena scoring, but it only affects dragons, and some dragons are just going to be able to score way more now, such as Legendary Corrin, I believe, just jumped up to like 195 BST, I think, something like that, by just having a 300 SPB skill and a 300 SP seal. So just like 2 jumps ahead, which is like crazy high. I believe you have someone like Legendary Myrrh and Legendary Faye as well, just like going way up there. I believe Myrrh already had her 300 SPB, but Faye as well just like jumps up as like crazy high in scoring potential. Now, don't let that discourage you if you're not one of the dragon users, because I do feel like other distant counters and close counters of different weapons and such are probably due to happen at some point, or at least more 300 SP seals, as I don't think IS is going to like give an unfair advantage to dragons forever. Either way, this is a huge deal, and there's going to be a lot of build options that open up. Or if you're a Legendary Tiki user like me, you're just going to be running double distant counter in arena because you have to. So that's going to feel kind of bad, but it is what it is. So this Tempest Trials coming up is awesome. It's amazing. and I'm really looking forward to it. All right, so for those of you that watch the FEH channel, we did have an announcement on Binding Worlds. Now, Binding Worlds is interesting because I think I call it like Hall of Forms 2.0. The menu and the aesthetic that it was shown in the FEH channel seem to imply that. And the way it kind of works is you're taking friend units and random units and just changing them all the time into different level ups and different builds if you land on this like pretty blue circle. Once we play it, I can give a further opinion on it, but because it's not a competitive mode, you shouldn't really be too... You should like play around with the mode, have fun, and not worry too much about the mechanics of it. Thankfully, that'll be the case here. And one thing that is interesting to me, though, is how this mode could potentially get monetized. So if you think about Hall of Forms, it wasn't monetized at first, and it eventually did. I can't imagine that they're just going to let us buy like whatever unit that we end up with from Binding Worlds here. It's going to be interesting to see if and how they want us or end up monetizing something like this. But for nothing else, it should be just fun. So maybe like a Hero's Journey type mode, who knows. Either way, just happy to have a new mode that's just fun, not necessarily competitive. And if it does end up getting monetized in some way or has some sort of redemptions like Hall of Forms did, then I look forward to seeing that as well. Moving forward with that, we have remixes, which are going to be adding way more mythic heroes. And I believe off the top of my head, that's like Thrasier, I believe Altina, Julia, and Twitch chat's going to help name the other ones because those are the only ones that come to mind right now. But there should be a lot more. Sothis, I believe. She wasn't already there. I think. I don't know. Legendary Leaf. Thank you, Twitch chat. So those are always good. That means that like over time, remixes should just get more and more valuable. My goal here, like pretty much my long-term goal right now is, especially since I'm an FTP player, I don't have FAT Pass, is I'm just going to focus strictly on remixes and accrue legendaries and mythics that way. The good quality legendaries and mythics are coming. As soon as somebody like Chrom just ends up there, you just don't really need anything but legendary Chrom. He's still super viable, still top tier. There's like no reason why you'd ignore him. In fact, he just got better because the SPB 300 SP skill just bumps him up to, I believe, a 190 like scoring, which is ridiculous considering how old he is, and he's going to be on the probably next set of remixes. So it just goes to show you that, like, yeah, you can probably stick to remixes and have a good time there. So I'm going to be looking forward to just focusing on remixes myself. So if there's stuff there that you're looking to improve for competitive modes, arena or mythics, remix is a good way to do it. If you are a FET Pass user, then take advantage of both remixes and, of course, legendary banners to give yourself that steady progression. It's always a good way to do it. Now, I did touch on these a little bit, but Ulm with Lunar Flash 2 pretty much becomes taking the components of Deadeye or Lethality. I'd put Lunar Flash closer to more of a Lethality effect because it's not amplifying his damage like Deadeye does. It's actually cutting damage like Lethality or Luna or Moonbow does. So that's what Lunar Flash has been upgraded to. But this is a great addition because with Ulm, I think one of his biggest weaknesses was just DR effects in general. So that's being overcome here from Lunar Flash. Comes with Times Pulse now as well, which is great. So like I said, his base kit is pretty much good to go. He's gonna have no follow-up. Times Pulse, just give him like a solid A skill. You can throw him on defense easily and create big threat that way. Naga now comes with Dive Bomb, which is kind of whatever. I guess that'll just help for cleaning up, but realistically, it's not that awesome. Divine Fang Plus did get a great upgrade, and it's going to just synergize with so many things. So it ends up giving attack speed 6 to units within 2 spaces and a guaranteed follow-up effect, which is amazing if you ask me. Legendary Lucina has this effect already, and I think a couple other more units might have it off the top of my head. I can't remember, but it is a superb effect. Off the top of my head, I can honestly think of somebody like Altina benefiting greatly from an effect like this if you wanted to use Altina on player phase or like with Gale Force. So like the combination of Naga plus Altina plus Thor is just really good now, because what you can do is have, let's say, Quick Impulse Altina with Thor in range of Altina, like let's say off of a Wings of Mercy Gale Force strat, and Altina has Gale Force, and with Naga buffing her at the start of turn, you can pretty much have Altina quad and guarantee that Gale Force, but also have special acceleration. It's just superb, and Naga and the synergy of Astromythics in general has just gone better over time. So I'm super happy to see this, and I'm going to put it to good use myself. And speaking of which, Twitch chat, Fallen Edel with Bold Fighter. So yeah, I'm going to be... There's going to be some interesting strats that I also feel like you could pull off with something like Guaranteed Follow-Up Effect. But that is not a full meme. Fallen Edelgard with Bold Fighter and Guaranteed Fall, for example, makes her do something like that, and it's pretty funny. Okay, so next up are our next batch of Ephemeras, which are Geese, which is Infantry Pulse, and Petra with Ground Orders. That's decent fodder. It's not amazing. It's not like the best we've had, but it's not terrible. Find use for it, I'm sure. We already talked about our weapon refines. And yeah, that pretty much covers the update. Hex Trap being up to 65 HP. That is a kind of annoyance, I believe. I feel like they probably should have left Hex Trap at 60, but now it's becoming quite a threat. And to dodge it, well, there's not going to be really a way unless they come up with a level 4, 300 SP ultimate dispel trap or ultimate disarm trap or whatever, or you just need to summon or support a bunch of units, stack HP skills. It's going to be a very annoying trap to overcome now. So I don't know where the ceiling here is. I thought that 60 would be the end, but I guess they're just going to keep pushing it. As it is, though, that pretty much covers the refines, my thoughts on the units, the update as well, and the Tempest Trials and everything so far this month has to offer. I will try to release a couple more videos before the end of the month, specifically on something like my thoughts on where the mythics and legendaries now lie, especially since we've had some remixes, we've had some new legendaries and mythics released. So I'm going to try to release that somewhere within this month, maybe something else as well, but we'll see. Thank you guys for watching. Anyone who made it this far into the video, I appreciate you as always. Thumbs up is the least I can ask for. Subbing as well. I'm on Twitch. See you guys very soon. Love you all. Peace.